Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our workshop this afternoon, Sensory Overload, what it is and what you can do about it. And I have Dr. Maria Staudt with us this afternoon, and she's going to give a chiropractic overview of what sensory overload is, and then how to approach that from a chiropractic standpoint. And then I'm going to jump in after that and talk about how praying often, eating well, and moving more can help with that sensory overload and help us cope. I think we live in a world we got so much going on. We got so much coming in at our senses, and sometimes we just get overwhelmed by it. So taking a moment and trying to do all the things we can to lessen that load and enjoy this journey we call life a little bit more. So Dr. Maria, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. So, like Julie said, I'm Dr. Maria Staudt. I'm a chiropractor. I'm based here in Waterloo, but I do mostly house call and office call appointments. A few years ago, I just realized that was a big need in our community, so I decided to just start a practice that focused mostly on that. I do have some office hours here or there during the week, but we can talk about that later if we want to. So I will go ahead and start sharing my screen here. We'll start talking about sensory overload. All right. So sensory overload, what it is and what to do about it. I'm just going to keep this kind of short and sweet to leave room for questions if we have any. But let's dive in here. Obviously, our five senses are touch, sight, hearing, smell, and taste. What those do is they give us the picture of what is going on in our world. How does sensation happen? Our brain and our body work together to create our perception of the world around us. Your sensory organs, so your eyes, your ears, and your tongue, send information to your brain. So, for instance, I'm looking at my computer right now, so my eyes are sending all of that information to my brain, and my brain is putting that picture of my computer together. Your brain interprets all that taste, all of that sound, all of those images, and that is what you experience as your surroundings in the world. So, why does sensory overload happen? Basically, it happens when your brain is just getting too much of that information and it can't process it anymore. It's kind of like when your computer has too many tabs open on the internet, it just kind of freezes on you. So that can happen kind of all at once, or it can kind of happen over time. So let's say you're at a really loud concert and you've just been being bombarded with noise for a little bit, and you just are like, oh my gosh, I cannot take another loud noise. That's kind of one of those all at once moments. But over time, it's more like during the day, you've had the TV on all day, kids have been talking all day, and by the end of the day, you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't take any more noise. So if this is happening to you frequently, or to one of your kids frequently, that could be an indication of a bigger sensory processing issue, such as autism, ADHD, or a sensory processing disorder. One of my favorite examples of this is what I call the Disneyland meltdown. And if you are in Disneyland and you stand around Main Street USA at about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you will see at least one child or adult having a meltdown. We all know what that looks like. Disneyland is super fun. It's one of my favorite places to be in the world. There are tons of colors, music, people, all that good stuff, which is all great and it's all fun. But after a while, it just gets overwhelming. Your brain can't take in any more of that information. So you just start melting down. You either everything gets very, very heightened, or your brain just stops processing everything altogether. Any parent knows that pretty much the only thing you can do is take that kiddo in a nice air-conditioned, quiet room and give them a little bit of a break. Or if it's the adult melting down, sometimes you just have to go sit down, maybe get a little snack, just take a little bit of a break, right? Where does chiropractic come into this? So most people think of chiropractors as joint doctors or bone doctors, but what we really are is experts on the human nervous system. We spend years of our lives studying that connection between the brain and the rest of our body. Our job is to find areas of nerve interference and reduce or eliminate that interference with adjustments. Those adjustments are very gentle, they're very safe, and they're very specific. What does nerve interference do, and how does it affect the sensory part of our brain? Basically, that nerve interference can do two things. Number one, it can corrupt the sensory information coming in, and it can also reduce your brain's capacity to process that information. So basically, nerve interference being present indicates that you are, or your child could be more susceptible to sensory overload. So chiropractic adjustments do lots of amazing things for our body. Today, I'm going to kind of focus on the sensory part of it. What they can do is they are a reset button for your nervous system. They can increase your brain's bandwidth for sensory processing. They can improve the accuracy of that sensory processing. That just means that the information coming in and the information going out are accurate. We're not getting garbled messages coming from the inside, and we're not getting garbled messages coming from the outside. That leads to the last one, ensures appropriate response to the sensory information. So because we're getting accurate information, our brain can create an appropriate response. A good example of that is touching a hot stove. If there is no interference present, the information from your fingertips will go to your brain. Your brain will process that information, say, ooh, that stove is hot, better get away from that. And it will send the commands to our hands, our arms, to pull away from the stove so we don't get burned. If there is nerve interference present, that information is corrupted. So by the time the information gets to the brain might think that the stove is cold, and it may just let you keep your hand there and get burned. We don't want that. Another thing to know about chiropractic adjustments are they're effective for all ages, birth on upwards. They can help regardless of the severity of the sensory processing issue. They're a safe, conservative care option, and they have been shown to positively affect sensory processing issues in clinical trials. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about that nerve interference. So over here on that side of the screen, I have some static going on. And that's kind of how I want you to think of nerve interference. It is static in the system. And it's the result of the spinal cord or a nerve root or a nerve being irritated because a joint has stopped moving correctly. Now, why did that joint stop moving correctly? That could be because of many, many, many different things. A lot of it is just daily things that we all do. We're all putting wear and tear on our spines. We're all putting wear and tear on all parts of our bodies every day. That's kind of what our bodies are designed to do. They're kind of designed to work and get worn down over time. So as with anything, we just have to do some maintenance to slow down that wear and tear and make sure that it's not having such a big impact on the function of our body. The other thing I really want people to know is that nerve interference can be a silent condition. It is asymptomatic in most cases. Symptoms will only show up after that interference has been present for a long time, long enough to start affecting that function of the muscles, organs, or joints. So if you're waiting for symptoms to show up, you've waited too long. For me, I recommend my patients get their nervous systems evaluated routinely, at least twice a month, to prevent nerve interference and keep their body as healthy as possible. Again, doing that maintenance. The other thing I want everybody to know is that nerve interference can be very, very dangerous. It negatively impacts every single function of your body. Because your nervous system is responsible for all of those functions, if that nerve interference is present, those functions can't happen correctly. And we're talking about functions like digestion, kidney function, things like respiration, our heart. All of those things rely on our nervous system working correctly. If the nervous system can't correctly, all of those functions are in danger of not functioning optimally. Adjustments remove interference 2 ways. So it removes the interference by, number one, restoring normal motion to the joints of the spine and extremities over time. So the reason that chiropractors look to the spine first is because our spinal cord is going through the back of our spine. And that spinal cord is the main channel of communication. So by getting any interference away from the spinal cord, we can start positively affecting the function down the line as those nerves go out and branch and branch and branch and become the nerves that go to our stomachs, our hearts, our liver, all those other organs and muscles. So the other thing that we do is the actual action of the adjustment is a reset to the joint. Number one, it resets the motion to be closer to normal motion, but it also resets any nerve endings that are in that joint, any neurology whatsoever that's in that joint. It resets it by quickly lengthening and shortening all of the ligaments, tendons, and all that stuff that are keeping that joint together. All right, so that's kind of what I wanted to introduce, go through first. So I'm going to quick wrap up here, and then Julie, if you have any questions, we could go through that. Or if anybody else has any questions, we could definitely go through that as well. So just to wrap up, sensory overload happens when your brain can no longer process the amount of information that it's being given. And chiropractic helps with that by removing the nerve interference and resetting your nervous system. They increase your brain's processing capability, and they improve the accuracy of that processing. All of that reduces the occurrence of that sensory overload. So, all right, here is my website and my phone number. We will make sure if you're watching the replay of this, we'll make sure that that is there available to you as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Maria.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I do have a question. So you talked about chiropractic being like a reset. So is that similar to like shutting the light switch on it, or shutting the light switch on and off, or like turning the computer? You know, sometimes when all else fails, especially with technology, they say to turn it off and turn it back on.
Yep. Absolutely. That's a really good way to think about it. We kind of think of it as like a hitting the reset button, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to think about it.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Audrey, do you have any questions at all?
No, but I do really believe in chiropractic because I do go on a regular basis.
Nice. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to make sure to kind of talk to everybody about is the severity of those sensory processing issues can really differ. So you can have something from a kiddo just all of a sudden one day not wanting to wear their socks anymore to, you know, all of a sudden you cannot tolerate really bright lights and you find yourself turning lights off all the time. So it could be subtle little changes like that too to be looking out for. So I just want to make sure I threw that in there as well.
Yeah. I discovered chiropractic, oh my gosh, probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And it's a tool. You know, is it everything? No. But it is a tool that I have found it's very helpful. Very helpful. Yeah, because if the nerves are not communicating to my muscles, to my organs, to, you know, my skin, to, you know, if they're not communicating, it just doesn't work right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it makes it really easy for the system to get overwhelmed, which is what leads to things like sensory overload. It doesn't even have to only be sensory overload, but that's kind of what we're focusing on today. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
If anybody else, Yeah, and if anybody else has questions, as if you're watching this video on the replay, shoot me or Dr. Maria an
Mhm.
email, and we would be happy to answer them for you. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and I'm going to go into a little bit on how praying often, eating well, and moving more can help with sensory overload issues. And there's lots of things you can do for that. So when we pray often, eat well, and move more, we can do those in ways that help to quiet our senses down and help to just quiet our body down, help to lessen the overall um, load that our nervous system has. And that helps us process things just a little bit better, and takes that load off that nervous system. One of the things that, or several things that one of the things I really think of with sensory overload is that it causes muscle tension. When we're under stress, our jaws tighten up, our tongue tightens up, our neck and shoulders tighten up, and we find our shoulders clear up by our ears, our back tightens up, and even our deep abdominal muscles and our core muscles just tighten up, like we got to hold ourselves up and together. And that, like I said, that causes all kinds of tension. And chiropractic can help release some of that, but so can praying often, eating well, and moving more by helping to relax those muscles. Muscle tension also can be caused by stress, inflammation, and poor posture. So we're going to go into how to relieve some of that muscle tension with praying often, eating well, and moving more. I always like to start out with praying often because I think it's the number one healthy habit people need to have. I teach 3 biblical truths when it comes to health and wellness, and the first one is God is number one. Because when we put God number one, everything else seems to fall into place. And when I think about quieting things down and relaxing the whole body, relaxing muscles, I think of this Bible verse from Psalm 46, verse 11, to be still and know that I am God. We are human beings, although lots of times we end up being human doings, thinking that we're constantly having to do something. But yet God calls us to just be with Him and to allow ourselves to just settle and to relax and to just be with Him. In praying often, when we can quiet our minds and we can shut down that input, shut down and lower how much our brain is actually processing, hand things over to the Prince of Peace. And then we get that peace in return. And we feel that sense of lightness, that sense of safety, reassuring ourselves that we are safe in this very moment. I know with the news and everything else going on, we can get caught up in what I call the collective fear and anxiety. And if we can just take a moment to say, okay, I'm in my home, and right here and right now, I am safe. There's, war is going on halfway around the world. Is it sad? Is it awful? Is it horrible? Yes. But right here and right now, I am safe. And feeling that sense of safety helps to open ourselves up so that we can feel grounded in love. Praying often also helps to balance our hormones when we feel that relaxed sense of safety. And it allows our bodies and minds to move and to function with ease rather than dis-ease. And we feel that sense of peace in return. So some different ways to pray often. There's hundreds and hundreds of ways that you can pray. There's scripture and devotionals. There's free form of just talking to God and laying it all out there like He was sitting right there with you, because He is always right here with us. Journaling is a great way to do it. Guided meditations, which reminds me, when you get this recording, I will have a link to a guided meditation for you to help quiet your body, mind, and spirit. Spending time in God's creation, aka nature, is also a good way. Rote prayers. I'm Catholic. I'm a practicing Catholic, and we have a lot of beautiful rote prayers, from the Our Father to the Hail Mary to the Glory Be, the Memorare. So many beautiful prayers that we say that we don't know what else. When we don't know what else to think or say, we can rely on those rote prayers to tune us into our Lord and our Heavenly Mother too, the Blessed Virgin, and to ask for that peace. And then to infuse God into everything we do. And when we infuse God into everything we do, it means, taking a look at the rain outside today. Here in Northeast Iowa, it's been raining all day. And some people might, have a negative feeling about that. But I look at that and go, oh, what a beautiful day. We need the rain. Our soil is so dry here in Northeast Iowa. We need the rain. And it's a great day to stay inside and get things done. We also need the sunshine, but the rain is also beautiful. Seeing the robins are back, the red-winged blackbirds are back, and hearing them outside and just noticing those little things, paying attention to those little things and infusing God into all we do can really help us notice Him here in the present moment and take our load off of some of that other sensory input. Eating well has a lot of different benefits when it comes to lowering inflammation, especially helping our overall nervous system and lowering that sensory overload. When our bodies are inflamed because we're eating a bunch of what I'm going to call junk food, it has a harder time processing that sensory information, and we tend to get overloaded quicker. And it also lowers our physical stress. It improves our nerve function. And eating real whole food is what our body needs. And it also lowers our stress hormones. When our stress hormones, meaning that we feel like we've got to fight, or we've got to run, or we've got to freeze in the moment, and we don't know what to do. And we're stuck in this what we call the fight or flight response. Eating well can help lower those stress hormones. And find that hormonal balance so that our digestion works well, so that our metabolism works well, so that our other hormones, like for us ladies, our female hormones work better. Even in menopause, we still have those estrogen and progesterone hormones in our bodies. When we have too high of stress hormones, those other hormones don't work as well. So providing overall hormonal imbalance. And it helps keep things moving. And when I say moving, I mean moving through the digestive tract. Sometimes when we're under stress, things tend to move through either really fast or really slow. If we're eating well, then those things tend to move. It helps things move at a balanced pace. And so by eating well and lowering inflammation, what do I mean by that? Eating real whole food. Not something that you open a box and add water. Not a lot of sugar, avoiding sugars, avoiding a lot of processed foods. Drinking water, plain water. And you may need to avoid, depending on your body and what your body likes or doesn't like, you might need to avoid gluten or grains or dairy or nightshades like potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant. Your body might like certain proteins versus other proteins. My body likes turkey and pork. My body doesn't like beans, nuts, or beef or chicken very well. So paying attention and being in tune to what your body likes is helpful. How can moving more help with sensory overload? Well, our bodies were designed to move. Moving your body helps to improve your posture and your structure. If your spine stays more in alignment and your body stays more in alignment, those nerves can communicate like they're supposed to. And you don't get that interference that Dr. Maria was talking about. Moving more, aka exercise, helps with digestion. helps with stress management, helps with lymph and circulation, helps with sleep, helps with, like I said, that nerve communication, helps your muscles and your joints and that chemical balance. And by chemical balance, I mean those hormones that I was talking about earlier. And it also helps with other neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, and those good endorphins we get when we do move our bodies. When we do all of this, we have peace. And one thing I think about with peace in doing all of these things and with sensory overload is I think we need to quiet all 5 of the senses. It brings me back to when I was a school nurse and I had people come in with migraines and they needed a dark, quiet room to just be for a while, to quiet those 5 senses as well as the thinking mind. Let go of the thoughts, hand them over to God, surrender them to our Lord, all the overwhelm, and learn to love and accept what is right now. Just you as you are right now, because you are perfect the way you are right now. It doesn't mean you have to necessarily stay where you're at or that you have to like it, but it's only through loving ourselves and accepting ourselves that we can change. By giving your body what it needs, by loving on it and asking God for help, asking God for peace, He will repay you. And I like this verse from Matthew when Jesus says, when you go to pray, go to your inner room, that quiet place, and close the door and pray to your Father in secret. And your Father who sees you in secret will repay you. And lots of times it is with just that peace we need in our hearts. And another thing that we can do is, and this I just thought of this today as a last minute thing, be aware of how much you're using or checking your phones. The average person checks their phone at least once every 3 minutes while they're awake. Crazy to think about. Not to mention all the people who check their phones when a notification comes in, or if they wake up in the middle of the night and it disrupts the sleep. Many people check their phones within 5 minutes of receiving a notification. And that all contributes to sensory overload. The people who make these phones, make these apps, create these notifications, know what grabs our attention. They're trying to grab our attention, play to our senses, and grab our vision, grab our hearing, and go, yo, I need you. They're using what they know about the brain and what they know about our senses. Some things that you can do to help with that is maybe not keep your phone in your bedroom at night. Turning off your notifications. I only have my phone set, usually my phone is set to vibrate, and I have notifications that come in for my phone calls and my texts. And most people who know me know that I'm not glued to my phone. So it may be a while before I answer. I'm not an instant replier. I will get back to you, but like I said, I'm not glued to my phone. And you might have to send out messages to let everyone know what you're doing so you won't respond immediately. Another tip is to move social media apps off your home page to make them a little harder to find. And notice then how much extra time you have. For some of us, that can be over 2 hours a day. A lot of people spend over 2 hours a day scrolling through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and just mindlessly scrolling and checking notifications. After a couple of days, you'll probably find out that you notice you really are okay. And you can tap into that peace and ease you were designed to live in. And I haven't even covered how constantly looking at your phone or other technology affects your posture and can cause nerve misalignments that way. Another topic for another day. You don't have to do all of these suggestions all at once. Start with something small or things you only have to do once, like changing some settings on your phone. 3 days of body movement in 1 week. taking 30-second Holy Spirit breaks throughout the day to take a deep breath, let your body settle, and feel supported by the surface below you, and let your muscles relax. You know, those few seconds to be still and know that God is with you. You know, maybe it's making 3 meals of real whole food and notice how you feel every week. See your chiropractor regularly and notice the muscle tension and intentionally allowing those muscles to relax. Bit by bit, you'll find yourself feeling freer and lighter. The bright lights, the loud noises, the strong smells, the touch or tactile stimulation won't bother you as much, and you'll end up tolerating all these things much better. And also, you can enjoy the journey. So, are there any questions from anyone?
Those were some great suggestions. I love that because it's like dealing from purely the neurological side of it. Sometimes I can forget to think about more of the spiritual side of it, more of the musculature side of it, like we were talking about with massage too, and diet, exercise, all that good stuff. Sometimes I tend to forget about that. So it's always a good reminder to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's figuring out what works well for you, you know?
I think your point of also making the one small change and just starting there, I think is important for a lot of people. I know when we were going through chiropractic school, one of their big things that they warned us about was just don't expect people to completely change their lives like that. You've got to give them little baby steps that they can take. So when I have a patient that's kind of struggling with stuff like that, Audrey, that's usually my biggest piece of advice to them is just find one thing that you can change. Like swap out a ho-ho for an apple one day a week. Just one small little thing.
Or not let myself buy it at the grocery store, and then it's not in the house. Or take a day at a time.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that one day at a time is really important, and that one step at a time, because you have to feel safe. If you don't feel safe doing something, you know, making a change, it's going to come back to bite you. You know, it's like stretching that rubber band too far. You stretch it too far, and it's going to snap, and then you're going to be right back where you were, or even worse. You know, but if you stretch it little by little, you know, it holds. So are there any other questions?
I don't think I have any.
Alrighty. Well, I think I'm going to sign off if that's okay with everybody. It's so good. Audrey, it's just awesome to see you.
You too, Julie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a blessing. And Maria, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
But yeah, have an awesome-tastic weekend, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.